Most people think of CPF only as a savings account to pay for their house and fund their retirement. But in reality, CPF can do so much more than just sitting there and earn interest. When you use it correctly, it can become one of your most powerful tools to grow your wealth. In this video, I'll walk you through some of the best ways to grow your CPF funds. So with that being said, let's start with the most straightforward strategy, topping up your CPF. Now, there are 4 main ways to top up your CPF. First, you can top up your special account or retirement accounts for retirement savings. Second, you can top up your ordinary accounts through the voluntary housing refund. And third, you can top up your Medisave accounts. And lastly, you can make a voluntary contribution to all 3 accounts at the same time. However, in practice, most people will just focus on just 2 methods, which are topping up the SA or RA and topping up the MA. And that's because when you top up to these accounts specifically, you will get to enjoy tax reliefs. $8,000 a year when you top up to your own accounts and another $8,000 when you top up to your loved ones. As a rule of thumb, for every $8,000 you top up to your SA or RA, you can expect roughly $50 more in monthly retirement payouts later on. While that may not sound like much at first, this figure does not include the effects of long-term compounding. So, assuming you top up $8,000 to your CPF SA at age 25 with a 4% compounding, that amount can grow to about $38,000 by age 65. At that level, the monthly payout from that single top-up will be closer to $230 a month and not $50. And the best part is that these $230 payouts will continue every month for as long as you live. As for Medisave, while you cannot withdraw the money as cash, the balance plays a crucial role in paying for healthcare expenses, insurance premiums, and hospital bills. And that is important because as you get older, medical costs tend to rise. So a stronger Medisave balance can help to offset the burden on your cash savings later on in life. But tax savings and interest compounding aside, there's another advantage that many people tend to overlook. For eligible individuals, top up to the retirement account or Medisave accounts can qualify for the Matched Retirement Savings Scheme and the Matched Medisave Scheme. Under these schemes, the government will match your top-ups dollar for dollar up to the annual cap. This effectively gives you free money on top of your own contributions. 恭喜发财! Get up to $1,888 in rewards when you open an account with Poems by Philip Capital. To make sure you qualify, take Smart Part opt-in during the sign-up process. Depending on how much funds you deposit into your accounts, you earn corresponding welcome gifts. For example, if you fund a minimum of $1,000 within 14 days and keep the funds in the account for 30 consecutive days, you'll receive a $10 in stock coupon. And if you fund a minimum of $20,000 while executing at least 5 trades, your reward will increase to $250. Additionally, the first 50 people who open their Poem accounts on a Tuesday will also receive an additional $50 stock coupon corresponding to the company for that week of sign-up. For example, signing up in the second week of the promotion will qualify the customer for one $50 P&G stock coupon, whereas another customer who opens an account in the third week will receive a $50 in Microsoft stock coupon. This is on top of the $0 US commission for 30 days reward when you fulfill the terms and conditions. So if you are interested, you can sign up with my link down below. The next way to grow your CPF is by transferring money from your OA into your SA. Now, just to be clear, this method is not for everyone, especially if you still need your OA funds for housing or other near-term plans. But when you move your money into your SA, that amount starts earning a higher interest rate. The SA pays 4% interest a year, with an extra 1% on the first $60,000 of combined CPF balances. In comparison, the OA earns only 2.5%, and over long periods, that tiny 1.5% can make a lot of difference. Assuming you transfer $10,000 over at 25, over a 40-year period, that $10,000 will have grown into $48,000. This is $21,000 more than if you have just kept the money in your OA. What makes this transfer so good is that it is also extremely low risk. The return is government-backed, stable, and not affected by market swings. This makes SA one of the safest places to grow your savings reliably. However, this decision is also irreversible. Once the funds move into SA, you cannot transfer them out back to the OA. That means you give up flexibility for things like housing or short-term use. What this means is that you should only do this if you're confident that you will not need that money before retirement. Now, while the CPF special account earns a guaranteed 4 to 5% interest a year, investing can potentially generate even higher returns. For example, instead of transferring $10,000 into your CPF SA, imagine you invest that same amount and earn an average return of 8% a year over 40 years. That's $10,000 would grow to more than $200,000. That is far higher than what the same money would become at 4% in the special account. However, as Uncle Ben would probably say, with higher returns comes higher risk. When you invest your CPF money, losses are possible. From 2016 to 2024, about 12% of CPF investors lost their money, while 17% earned returns that were less than or equal to the 2.5% OA interest rate. In other words, almost 1 in 3 investors failed to beat CPF's guaranteed return. That is why CPF investing is not for everyone. You should only invest your CPF if you understand the risk and know what you are doing. But if you do decide to invest the money, here are 2 important things that you need to know. First, there are strict restrictions on what you can invest in. You cannot invest in individual foreign stocks. You are limited to CPF-approved products, such as certain ETFs, unit trusts, insurance products, bonds, and fixed deposits. And the rules are even stricter for the special accounts, because SA money is meant for retirement. Second, you cannot invest all your CPF money. For your ordinary account, you must set aside $20,000 before you can invest the rest. And for the special accounts, the amount you must set aside is even higher at $40,000. If you want to see how much you can invest right now, you can log into your CPF account, go to My CPF, and click on My Investment. The system will show you how much of your OA you can invest, how much can go into shares or gold, and how much of your SA is eligible for investment. Now, if you're like me and have used most of your OA to pay for your home, you may notice that a larger portion of your CPF is sitting in your SA. And naturally, you may start to wonder what you can actually invest in with that money. The short answer is not very much. If you go to a fund and ETF selector and filter by CPF SA, you will see that the available choices are limited. Even the best performing fund only showed around 6% annualized returns over the past 10 years, which only slightly beats the CPF SA interest rate. And even then, that outperformance mostly came from the past few strong years in the US markets, when the fund delivered 10% to 12% annualized returns during that period. But if you roll the clock back to earlier periods, that same fund would have only been earning 3% a year. So what this means is that given the limited options and the fact that CPF SA offers a high and stable government-backed return, leaving your money in the SA still remains the better choice. But then, what about CPF OA? The lowest risk way to invest your CPF OA is through fixed income products, such as Singapore government bonds, T-bills, fixed deposits, and certain bond funds. However, in the current interest rate environment, almost all of these products are yielding below 2.5%, and thus failing to beat what CPF OA already pays you. Meanwhile, stocks offer much higher long-term return potential, but they also come with much higher risk. Under CPF investment scheme, you are limited mainly to approved SGS-listed shares, and you cannot invest in individual foreign stocks. Now, some investors may point to the strong performance of Singapore stocks in recent years and feel tempted to jump in. While there is nothing wrong with that, and for all we know, this strong performance may continue to go on higher, especially for quality businesses. But it's important to remember that stock investing is not for giving. If you are new to investing, poor stock selection, emotional decisions, or lack of diversification can easily lead to underperformance. Because of that, stock picking with CPF OA is not ideal for beginners. Unless you have the knowledge, discipline, and the time to analyze businesses properly, the risk of making these costly mistakes is high. Then, what about gold? Gold is often described as a hedge against inflation and market uncertainty. And right now, gold has been on a strong rally, which makes it look very attractive. But we need to understand what gold really is. Gold is not a business, it does not generate profits, dividends, or cash flow. It does not compound, and its price depends entirely on supply and demand, investor sentiment, and macro conditions. That makes the long-term returns of gold highly unpredictable. On top of that, you can only invest up to 10% of your investable savings in gold. This makes gold unsuitable as a core growth asset for CPF OA. At best, it works as a small defensive allocation and not a long-term growth engine. So, if fixed income offers limited upside, stocks require skills and discipline, and gold does not compound, what else can you invest in? That brings us to ETFs and unit trusts. For most CPF OA investors, ETFs and unit trusts are the most practical and balanced options. These funds allow you to invest in hundreds or even thousands of companies at once. Instead of betting on a few individual stocks, you gain instant diversification across sectors, industries, and sometimes even countries. This greatly reduces the risk of any single company dragging down your returns. They also make investing so much simpler. You do not need to analyze financial statements, track earnings, or time the markets. Over long periods of time, broad market funds have historically delivered higher returns than 2.5%, which means they have a much better chance of outperforming the CPF OA interest. In practice, most investors who invest their CPF OA will focus on three broad markets: Singapore, the United States, and the global markets. As to which you should go for, there's no single right choice here. Some investors prefer the Singapore markets because they are more familiar with local companies. Some prefer the US market because of its stronger long-term growth potential, while others choose global funds to reduce concentration and geopolitical risk by spreading their investments across many countries. For the Singapore market, the two most common choices are the Spider STI ETF and the Amoa AM STI ETF. Both of them track the Straits Times Index. At the moment, the Spider STI ETF has a slightly lower expense ratio of 0.28% as compared with the Amoa Singapore version. You can invest in these through FSN1 or POEMS. But because POEMS charges a 0.0% per trade, while FSN1 charges a flat $8.80, POEMS tends to be cheaper when you are investing less than $11,000, while FSN1 becomes more cost-effective for larger sums. As for the US market, the lowest cost options available under CPF is the Harmony Prime USA Fund. Although it does not track the S&P 500 exactly, its performance is highly correlated with it, which means it behaves very similarly to a broad-based US market fund like S&P 500. The fund charges a very low 0.05% expense ratio and automatically reinvest dividends. As for the platform, POEMS does not charge a platform fee for investing in this fund, making it the most cost-efficient way to gain US exposure using CPF. Lastly, if you prefer global diversification, a popular low-cost choice is the Harmony Index MSCI World Fund. This fund tracks developed markets around the world, carries an expense ratio of about 0.1%, and reinvests its dividends. Again, POEMS is the cheapest platform to invest in this fund. That said, strong historical returns do not guarantee future performance, and while these funds have delivered more than 12% annualized returns in the past, it may also deliver lower returns in the years ahead. You also need to be prepared for volatility. Over the past few decades, both the S&P 500 and the All World Fund have experienced drawdowns of more than 40% within a single year. However, the longer an investor is able to stay invested, the more returns tend to move closer to long-term averages. Then, some people will ask, what is the best investing approach when it comes to CPF? Is it lump sum or is it dollar cost averaging? Historical data will tell you that lump sum investing outperforms DCA almost 70% of the time. And that's because the market goes up 70% of the time. It is during that 30% when the market isn't doing so well that DCA would be a better strategy. But personally, if you ask me, and this is not financial advice in any way, yeah, I'm just sharing with you my strategy. Given that the agent bank will charge you around $2 in fees every time you make a trade, I'm leaning more towards lump sum investing to minimize the fees as much as possible. At the same time, since OA already earns a 2.5% interest, I'm not in a hurry to invest immediately. I would rather wait for market pullbacks before I invest. And that's when long-term returns may become more attractive. I guess in that sense, it is a form of timing the market. But the guaranteed CPF interest gives me the patience to be selective when I want to invest the money. So there you have it. Those were some of the best ways to grow your CPF money. Anyway, hope you found it useful. Like, share and subscribe as I'll be posting new videos every week.